I guess I'm talking politics again, but recent Trump tariffs have been a disaster. So, a tariff is a tax on goods and services imported from other countries. These are paid by the importer. The idea is simple. Let's say you want a Nintendo Switch 2. They are made in two places, the USA and the People's Republic of China. On this graph, you'll find that the Chinese Nintendo Switch costs less than the American one. You, being the good consumer, will go for the product that costs you the least amount of money, meaning that you'll go for the Chinese Switch 2. This will not do, says the President of the United States, who subsequently slapped a tariff on the goods from China. Now, this graph doesn't look like this anymore. It looks like this. Now, the American Switch 2 looks cheaper in comparison. Though, viewers who live in America know, hang on, we don't make Switch 2s in America. We don't even have any factories that would make the parts for this. Why would a Switch 2 be made in America? That is correct. This graph doesn't look like this because it would look like this. All that has been done is that the goods made in foreign countries just get more expensive, and the alternatives do not exist. That defeats the whole point of a tariff. But that's just the Switch 2, a product with no factories in America. What about something we do have a domestic industry in, like clothing or medicine? Well, when you have a chart that looks like this, you're going to drive demand towards the American goods. When you have a small supply but high demand, it tends to lead to skyrocketing prices. The American goods have to increase in price because, well, the demand is too high, the supply can't keep up. So now you have two expensive options to choose from. Not looking good for the consumer. And for those of you asking to just increase the supply, there's a problem with that. Increasing supply takes time. If Trump slapped tariffs on plant-based material like, I don't know, coffee, you're going to cause some issues. Coffee only grows in very specific regions. While the US does have coffee growing regions, I heavily doubt the likes of Guam, Puerto Rico, and Hawaii could supply coffee that meets the demand of all the USA. That's just not viable. You would need to plant and cultivate the crop first off to grow it, which takes a long time because plants do not grow on your time, they grow on their own time. You also need to maintain them, not only just watering them and making sure no one tries to destroy them, but you also have to pay attention to any diseases that affect the plants. And yes, plants get diseases. Not sure why I need to say that, but apparently some people believe that they don't get diseases for whatever reason. Not to mention, you would be storming into Guam, Puerto Rico, and Hawaii, looking at their communities and telling them, we're uprooting you to grow coffee. Ethics aside, that takes time. You need to develop all this land for agriculture. You can't just grow coffee on like concrete. That you also don't have time. It's one thing to grow a plant, but you also need to process the coffee plant. You guys just don't eat coffee beans raw, unless you do, in which case, good for you, I guess. Processing requires equipment, space, and plants. And equipment has limits. If you are processing, let's pick out an arbitrary number, 1,000 pounds of coffee a day, and your quota shifts to 5,000 pounds a day in order to meet the demand that is now new, you're going to laugh. And then you're going to cry. Processing plants are built with the idea that you're going to have some increase or decrease in demands and thus can operate. Say, let's 10%. Okay, I'm going to be generous and say, let's go with 25%. So this particular processing plant, which makes 1,000 pounds of coffee a day normally, now can process 1,250 pounds of coffee per day on a regular basis. At this rate, you'll just need a new plant because that is not going to meet the 5,000 pounds of coffee per day demand. So either you're going to be making a new one from scratch or you're going to be overhauling one for your purposes. And if the point of a tariff is to unleash American manufacturing and revitalize it by moving all the jobs back home, that is a very stupid thing to say. because making American goods more desirable price-wise, well, that has failed for specific consumer goods like the Switch 2, which have no factories in America. There is no Switch 2 factory in America. The only game in town just got more expensive. And for other goods, if the supply is too small compared to the demand, you just raise the prices. You just made life harder for everyone. Whether you agree with the game of tariffs is irrelevant. If you are going to start this game and play it intelligently. You don't start a trade war during the first 100 days you are in office. Someone who actually knows how to play the tariff game would work with companies by incentivizing or subsidizing the expansion of their manufacturing. Because you need to actively have competition in order to put a thumb on the scale in favor for competition. Otherwise, you're just putting a thumb on the scale for the sake of putting a thumb on the scale. For manufacturers, subsidize their increased capacity in new plants. And the manufacturing workers will eventually come, because let's be real here, the days of sitting around putting stuff in screw by hand are no longer here. Most manufacturing is actually automated. So that way, the demand could actually be met, as opposed to a self-imposed embargo. The pundits say China needs our money. And to which I say, you don't make these goods. China has all these goods. You buy their goods. Meaning that you need their goods. That's the whole point of the exchange of goods and services. And I don't think going, you don't need a Switch 2, you don't need a new phone, you don't need electronics, you don't need coffee, you have everything you need at home, will work. When your entire understanding of the world is based on the commercial exchange of goods and services, I don't think telling the people who would be paying for these goods and services to simply not care about them anymore helps your case at all. It's absurd. It's absurd because you're trying to shut down a consumer market, which is the exact opposite thing you want when you are manufacturing something. You can't encourage someone to buy American and then tell them in the next breath, well, you really don't need this product, because what you're doing is destroying a market for the product you're making. Yeah, not a bright idea. This is not chess. This is a highly intoxicated man driving on the highway, thinking that he is driving a limousine, when in reality, he's not driving a limousine, he's driving a riding lawnmower with a beer in hand while the cops are chasing him. Those are just my thoughts. Please consider liking, subscribing, tipping the channel on Ko-fi. This is Cyril signing off.